We will now move on to the Maryland House of Delegates District 9B. This is for a single seat. You can vote for one candidate. We have one candidate in the Republican primary. He may make a statement of up to 4 minutes. Mr. Bob Flanagan.
I'm Bob Flanagan, and I'm the current delegate representing Ellicott City in the House of Delegates. There are two headlines that I think Marylanders can be very proud of. The first, Washington Post, April 15th, Marylanders get it done. And the second, April 10th, 2018, from the Baltimore Sun, a common sense session and Marylanders win. Maryland and Howard County are setting a good example to the nation in setting aside political bickering and working together, reaching across the aisles, Republican and Democrats alike, for bipartisan solutions. I'm asking for your vote so that I can continue to work with Governor Hogan and County Executive Kittleman to create practical, common sense solutions to our problems, again, by working together with people of both parties. I have the endorsement of Governor Hogan and County Executive Kittleman. Let me give you some examples of things that I supported either by voting for them and in many cases sponsoring legislation. I voted to stabilize the Obamacare health insurance market. We put funding in there when Congress took it out. I supported domestic violence legislation to take guns away from domestic violence abusers and make sure that those guns were taken away. We passed and I voted for improved gun safety laws. We passed and I supported more money and more planning to improve school safety. I voted for a constitutional amendment to put commercial gaming revenue in a lockbox for public school education. No more games being played with like you were at a carnival trying to figure out where the P is under the cups. We passed a tri-state agreement to fund capital improvements to the Washington Metro. More money for local roads so that Howard County and other counties can fix their local roads, that pothole down the street that's really annoying you. We voted to make Maryland a permanent member of the U.S. Climate Alliance. We have a demonstrable track record of success in improving the Chesapeake Bay. More bay grasses, more oysters, and the dolphins are back. We're counting them by the hundreds, if not the thousands. Looking ahead, I will continue to work in a bipartisan way on making Ellicott City safe and prosperous. The council in the 2010-2014 time frame made some major mistakes that added to the flooding that we have experienced. I want to close the loopholes in the development laws. I want to continue to work on rooting out scandals in our public school system by creating a state office of school inspector general. Even Howard County has experienced great changing scandals. I want to continue working on protecting children against traumatic brain injury, and where children have experienced traumatic brain injury, to make sure they're identified and get an appropriate education. And finally, I appreciate having the League of Women Voters support for a fight against political gerrymandering. The political gerrymandering in Maryland is a scandal. There are states around the country that are reforming their system, and we should too.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan, for that statement. There are two challengers for the Democratic primary in House of Delegates District 9B. Each candidate will be given 30 seconds to give opening remarks. We will begin with Daniel Medinger.
Thank you. My name is Dan Medinger. I'm running for the Maryland House of Delegates because the times call for change. We need to send new people with new ideas to get new results. As a small business owner, I know how to get things done. I have experience working in every county in the state, as well as Baltimore City. And as your delegate in Annapolis, I know how to extend the ladder of opportunity for all. The recent events in Ellicott City remind us that elections matter, and we need elected officials who know the consequences of the decisions today and how they will impact the future. I look forward to serving as your representative.
Thank you. Now we will have a 30-second opening statement from Courtney Watson.
Good afternoon. I'm Courtney Watson, and I have been an Ellicott City resident for 30 years, raising my 3 children here with my husband, Richard. I was inspired to run for state delegate to represent Ellicott City and Annapolis, primarily by a few reasons. One is the threat to our public education system that is happening now with some of the national events that are occurring. We have a tremendous amount of work to do to make sure that our educational system stays on top in Howard County, and I want to be in Annapolis to help that happen. Further, I'm concerned about the fact that we may lose health care for people in Howard County through the Affordable Care Act, which I will discuss more later.
Thank you. Let's begin our question session. If you would like to respond, please hold up your card or your hand so that I can call on you in the order in which you are seen. You will have 1 minute for each response. A timekeeper is sitting in the front row to let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. Question 1. Do we need high-speed transportation between Baltimore and Washington? If so, what would that look like and how would you fund it? I can call on whoever's hand or card I see first.
She does this all the time, that's why I'm making him go first.
Should I move on to the second question?
No, I'd like to answer it.
Okay, Ms. Watson.
My opponent usually likes to go second, so I will allow him that privilege. We do need high-speed transportation between Baltimore and Washington, and that is something that we need to aspire to. It's a long-term solution for the problems that we see, the gridlock that we see. But we also need better transportation in Howard County, and we can accomplish that through partnerships with the private sector as well as through government funding. Our bus transportation could be drastically improved, and we need both high speed between Baltimore and Washington, and we need transportation connections within Howard County to be able to get people to jobs in Howard County. And it's very important that we consider not just government funding, but partnerships with the outside. This is done with the outside sector. This is done very successfully in other countries, and even something as simple as a partnership with the private ride carrier Lyft, for example, would be helpful in expanding our ability to get workers to jobs in Howard County.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Mr. Medinger?
Sure. I've been knocking on doors throughout our district since last June, and transportation is a very important issue to folks as they talk about how to get to jobs. Our problem is that right now we don't have a comprehensive strategy for transportation. As a member of Leadership Howard County, I did the bus challenge here in Howard County, and if you tried to get on a bus to get to Howard Hospital, you would be in serious trouble if you were using the bus as the way to get there. We have 30,000 people who work at NSA and Fort Meade, and I think we can build a short line between here and there that will get cars off the road, but our transportation system and our transportation opportunity has to be driven by something that's affordable, something that gets cars off the road, and something that also protects our environment. So we need a good plan to get there, and right now we don't really have one.
Thank you. Like the rest of the country and across income and class lines, Howard County is experiencing an opioid crisis, including the abuse of prescription drugs. What do we need to do to effectively respond to this crisis?
The healthcare crisis that we have is very serious here in Howard County because we are limited by only having one hospital and one place where we can get the care that we need. We need a comprehensive strategy to help people understand how they can manage pain and how they can deal with it. There's progress being made in terms of how we are reaching the medical community to better understand how these opioids are affecting their patients, and there's progress that is being made there. But frankly, we need more treatment facilities, more beds, and more available outlets. And we need to treat it as a health crisis rather than as a criminal act. And I think we can make progress along those lines if we work together to recognize that our problem is a health care issue, not just a drug issue.
Ms. Watson?
This is the #1 health crisis that we're facing, the public health crisis that we're facing in Howard County and across the state right now. There are strides being made, but we need to do much more. One of the biggest problems that we have is that we don't have overnight treatment facilities where someone can go as soon as they're ready. And what happens in an opioid overdose is the person overdoses, and if you're lucky enough to bring them back with the antidote, Narcan, that's when they're ready. That's when they're ready to go to that overnight facility. And if there is not a bed, you lose that opportunity. #1, we have to increase the overnight treatment facilities that take care of this particular addiction. #2, we have got to increase access to mental health care, starting in elementary school. Many people turn to opioids and other illicit drugs because they have unmet mental health care needs, and that is very, very critical to solving our problem. I am an advocate for increasing mental health screening in schools, because if we can't get that care to them in schools, it's going to be difficult in the private sector.
Thank you. Last question. Maryland recently passed legislation requiring domestic abusers to turn in their firearms. How would you enforce this? Mr. Medinger?
The challenge that we face in the gun problem in this country is significant. We have 101 guns for every 100 people in this country, and we need to recognize that it also is a health crisis and one that affects us all. What we have found in studies is that 93% of the time when judges order guns to be turned in, they're not being done. So we need to make sure that our police and law enforcement folks have the resources that they need, they have the funding that they need, and they have the personnel that they need in order to enforce those court-ordered decisions. And so that's a very significant problem. I'm very proud of the fact that the Moms Demand Action have endorsed me, because they recognize that the 7 points that I have for reducing gun violence in this country are on the right path. But we need to have a holistic strategy to get the guns back, and we need to make sure that domestic abusers give up their guns.
Ms. Watson?
And I will add to my friend Dan's explanation, which I think is a good start, and say that some of the laws passed this session that our own Delegate Atterbury helped bring about, that allow people to petition the court for removing guns from people that they know personally may be at danger, is very important to getting guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. So we now have a tool, a law that allows that, but we also have to have the resources to enforce it. That's critically important. I have been working with Marylanders to prevent gun violence for 5 years, and I also am a candidate of distinction, they call it, with Moms Demand Reliable Gun Sense Action. And I believe that the two arms, government and the courts, need to work hand in hand with the police departments to make sure we're getting these guns away from these people. And the fact that people close to them can now petition the court is a key advancement in this issue.
Thank you. Each candidate will now have 30 seconds for their closing statements. We will begin with Courtney Watson.
I think it's very important at this time, in 30 seconds that I have, to ask you to provide whatever help you can to Ellicott City in the tragedy that we are seeing now. It's critically important that we not politicize this kind of tragedy, but I want to make sure that you know what you can do to help. I have been working the last week or so with people in Ellicott City to get them the help they need. If you want to help, you can donate to visitoldellicotcity.com, which is the Ellicott City Partnership Fund, for funds that go directly to Ellicott City. And you can drop off food and supplies at the Howard County Food Bank or Clark's Hardware.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates for District 12. Excuse me. Oh, I apologize. Mr. Medinger, I apologize.
Thank you. I'm very proud of the many endorsements that I've received since I started this campaign last June the 22nd. I've received endorsements from the Sierra Club because they know that I'm going to protect our environment, People's Voice because they know that I'm actually running an ethical campaign, and many others, but that most important endorsement is going to be yours, those of you who vote. And the choice in this election is very clear. It's about evaluating the past and preparing for the future. We need new people who can be trusted to do the job of representing you. We need someone who can create jobs, invest in the infrastructure, and has a track record of being a welcoming person. I look forward to earning your support as we run for a sustainable future.
Thank you. And thank you to both candidates for House of Delegates District 9B.